Thank you for taking out the time to meet with us today. What is your name?
Margie Orr.
And what is your occupation?
I'm a retired person right now, although I'm working a little part-time job as a home care provider. And I'm also on York City School Board. This is my 9th year being on the board and my 4th year being board president.
And where are you from?
I was born in Bamberg, South Carolina, migrated here. My parents migrated here when I was all 3 years old. So I've been here for quite a number of years.
And were you a York High graduate?
Yes, I graduated from York High in 1963.
And so growing up here in York, what was it like growing up where the city was beginning to integrate the city schools?
During my early years, of course, I went to Christmas Addicts Daycare Center under Mrs. Helen Thaxton. And when I started in kindergarten, well, I went there all through kindergarten. When I started first grade, when they were trying to integrate the schools here in the city of York, they opened up Princess Street, which is Princess Street Center now, but it was Princess Street School back then, and it went from 1st to 4th grade. Those were my first years of going to school. And then I went over to Smallwood School, Charles Smallwood School now, which is a part of York High. And I went there from 5th grade up to 9th grade at the time. Yeah. 6. Yeah, 9. No, it wasn't 9th grade. I went up to, it was elementary back then. So the cutoff was at 6th grade. Yeah, junior high was 7, 8, and 9. And then I went to Hannah-Penn for 7, 8, and 9th grade.
And what was the experience through that?
I didn't per se run into a lot of racism, although back in those days, York was a lot of racism happening here in the city of York. The neighborhood where I grew up, we were all tight-knit. And when they say it takes a village to raise a child, that's exactly how it was when I was growing up in my neighborhood. You dare some disrespect an older person, you better listen to an older person. Because if they had to go back and tell your parents that you were disrespectful, boy, you were going to get it in both ways. So, you know, I had a good upbringing, yeah, good experience as a child growing up.
And so after graduation from York High, where did you begin your workforce experience?
My workforce experience was I obtained a job because I took the business course at York High upon graduation, and I obtained employment at American Machine and Foundry in their billing department. And I worked there for a while, and I even did a stint in the mailroom for a while. And then later on, I obtained employment at American Machine and Foundry, which was AMF, which is Harley Davidson now. And I stayed there for a few years. I was the night shift superintendent secretary. That job was created for the superintendent, and I was lucky enough to get that position as his secretary. And I stayed there then another few years, and then I decided to leave there, and I went to McCrory Corporation in their data entry department. Mm-hmm.
And how long were you there for?
I retired, actually. Well, not retired. The company went into bankruptcy mode after 23 years of my employment there. And I took some time off for a while. And then I started working at Atkins House, which is transitional. It's a halfway house for female offenders. And while I was there, I opened up 2 houses of my own for the females coming out of that transition, that they didn't have a home to go to right away. So I opened up 2 houses called the Willows back then, and I was there then basically until my retirement. Yeah.
And what was your experience at Atkins House?
My experience at Atkins House, like I said, I dealt with female offenders, and they were there for various offenses, drugs. We had one girl there that she put her baby in the oven, killed it, yeah, and she finally got paroled to the Atkins House. My experience dealing with the women, and I was in their treatment facility. I was the office manager of the treatment facility, and I also took care of all of their expenses, all their finances. I worked over there in the residential facility every Friday. So I did all their banking transactions for them, because the women, of course, they all had to work. They had to do a third of their monies for themselves. They had to pay off their court fines, costs, and if any of them had child support payments, they had to take care of all of that. So I kept all of their records and handling their monies.
And what inspired you to not only work there, but to open up housing of your own?
Well, I saw the need. I saw the need after, because I was there for 8 years at Atkins House, and I saw the need for, there were a lot of houses in York for men, and there was just maybe 1 or 2 at the time for females. So there was a great need for housing for females in the York area. And Atkins House was affiliated with Hershey School. And in fact, Hershey was donating supplies, a lot of supplies to the Atkins House. And I was in contact with the person at Hershey, Milton Hershey School. And they in turn gave me all the supplies that I needed to put in the Willows, my 2 homes. Yeah, so it was an experience working with the females, you know, and in of itself. Of course, they had to go to meetings, AA meetings, you know, NARA meetings. They had to get counseling and all that. And of course, they had to work. They had to work because I didn't get any funding for those houses. I was doing it all on my own. So the women had to pay. Yeah, they had to pay for room and board. But it was an experience, you know. I tend to think, and I still see some of the women that lived in my houses on occasion, and some of them are still doing very well with themselves. Now, of course, you have some relapse, went back out, usually the ones who were out in the drug culture scene. But for the most part, I had quite a few women that did very well, moving out on their own and getting their children back from, you know, from the services. So some of them are doing really well.
And so what is your passion? What is it that drove you through all these careers that you've had that, you know, that just really inspires you to continue doing a lot of work?
What inspired me was my own experiences. Was my own oldest daughter was a drug offender, and I had to raise her children because I was determined not to let my grandchildren go into foster care. So I eventually raised 5 children for my granddaughter, and that was my calling right there, to do everything I could for children, to do everything I could. You know, I had some pushback. I had even some family members who tell me, "Why, you're so young, why do you want to tie yourself down with raising all these babies?" And I'm saying, why not me? They're my blood. I'm not going to see them go into foster care. And at the time, my mother was still living, and she helped me a lot with the children. Yeah, because I was a single grandmother back then. You know, I was married later on in life, but I was a single grandmother when I was raising my grandchildren and working a full-time job, raising grandchildren. It was a challenge, but I made it. Proud of my kids. They all graduated from school. They're all doing very well with their lives. Yeah.